wisdom is saying, so if you want to avoid getting hurt, don't attach to anything. Don't connect. Don't connect. Don't love. In the core principles of Buddhism, it's about not connecting. Jesus says, no, that's not it. The goal is to connect. And the downside of Jesus' teaching, though, you can see it coming. The downside is that you are going to suffer. Who have you connected to in life? What have you connected to? What dreams? What aspirations? What places? What experiences? What people? Family? Friends? Best friends? Children? Parents? Things that we've connected to are the things, oddly, that also have the potential to rend our hearts in two. Jesus doesn't say that life is about eliminating suffering. Sure, he doesn't want us to go through that any more than anyone else does. But the bottom line is it's not about eliminating suffering. It's about having abundant life. It's about being full of love. It's about being full of life. Knowing that, along with that, there are going to be hard times. The reason I did this example today, this whole notion of a funnel and a cup, is how we go through life with love. How we live that love. Knowing that if we choose to engage, we are going to get hurt. That's the bottom line. If you don't want to get hurt, just detach. It's easier. You won't suffer as much. But guess what? You also won't have joy. You won't have an abundant life. If you choose to detach from everyone around you. And a few weeks ago we talked about that. The different ways that we war on those that we love. And one of the ways that we do it is by disengaging, isn't it? Because it's easier, because it doesn't hurt as much. I want to love, and I want that high, but I don't want the low that sometimes comes with it. Well, guess what? Welcome to life. Welcome to life. But the bottom line is, if we keep striving for that love and keep finding ways to be instruments of God's love in the world, guess what? We find ways through that sorrow. We're never promised that the sorrow will be gone, but we're promised a way through. And we're promised abundance again. The reason I bring this up is because Jesus has a model for how to love in the world. We so often think that the way to experience love in the world is to stick out our cup, to be a cup, and to collect all of the love that God brings into our lives. From the people, from the experiences, from the dreams, from the aspirations, from our children, to collect love. Collect it and collect it and collect it. Right? That's what we think. Get as much love as we can. But that's center of the universe thinking. I'm in the center of the universe, and I exist to collect as much love from God as I possibly can. All of you have heard of the Dead Sea, right? Over in the Middle East. Do you know why the Dead Sea is dead? The Dead Sea is dead. It has rivers flowing into it, tributaries flowing into it. But the reason the Dead Sea is dead, why nothing can grow in the Dead Sea, is because there's no river flowing out of the Dead Sea. There's plenty of life flowing in, but nothing grows there. Nothing can live there. In fact, you lay in the water in the Dead Sea and you float. It's just salt. The water evaporates and you got salt. And you just float. Nothing can grow there because there's no life flowing out. And it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Well, you'd think, well, if there's life flowing in, if there's rivers flowing in, then there should be life growing there. It's not the way the world works. Think about it this way. If you eat, and you eat, and you eat, and you develop a prostate problem, and you can't excrete bodily fluids, it gets a little painful, doesn't it? You become toxic. Notion of a professor in college who used to say that the same notion is true spiritually. That if we have all of God flowing into us, but if we have no way of releasing that, we become spiritually constipated, he used to say. We become toxic. The truth is God's love, God's teachings, God's influence in our life, the peace, the hope, the joy is only good and only continues to feed us as it flows through us. Jesus' point is we're not cups. You're not called to collect God's love. Jesus was a funnel. Notice Jesus' teaching had two things, didn't it? Love God and love neighbor, right? Consider that a funnel has two apertures, like a camera, two apertures. One on the top that can be like an aperture on a camera. It can be tightened. It can be widened, right? On a camera, it's how much light you want to let in. On a funnel, If I could control the upper aperture, it would be how much water I could let in. Has a bottom aperture as well, how much can flow out of it. God flows in the top with his love, and it flows out the bottom, whichever direction you direct that aperture. To love God is to allow, what did we talk about last week? The notion of allowing God into us, to be filled up with God's love, with God's hope, with God's peace, with God's power, with the teachings of Jesus. To be filled up with that. But guess what? If you put your finger on the bottom, ain't nothing coming out, and you will become toxic, spiritually toxic. Remember, Jesus' second commandment is that it must flow out of you. We are called to be instruments of love in the world. It's not about us collecting all the love from heaven that comes down, all the love from the different sources in our life where we get love and collecting it just for ourselves. Jesus says, you will not know abundant life until it flows out of you to others. What's fascinating is we see that echoed in many of the other great teachings, and we see it hammered away in Jesus time and time again. If you want your life, you must give it up. You must lose your life. If you want love, you must be willing to let go of love. You must be willing to shower it on others. So when we get back then to that Great Commission text of making disciples, it's not about coming over and teaching someone as if they're stupid and I'm smart. Instead, it's about showing love. It's coming underneath. Coming from underneath and raising them up with love. It's about being an instrument of God's love in the world. But guess what? The problem is, of course, that we're taught just the opposite. Madison Avenue, television, MTV, billboards would have us believe that this is how we're supposed to live. Collecting as much love as we can, and then you'll be happy. Just get more, then you'll be happy. In fact, we see it now. It's a trend now in Christianity. You've heard of prosperity gospel, prosperity preaching. God wants you to be rich, not just have some. God wants you to have like a lot. I mean, a lot. God wants you to have as much money and stuff and things, then you'll be happy. Yeah. No. Jesus never says that. He says it's not about you. That until there is an aperture on the bottom, until it's flowing out of you, you will not know the joy, peace, power, purpose, love, hope that you see. And what's interesting is Jesus, in this Matthew 28 text, it's a command, actually. Go, make, teach, baptize. These are commands. So it's interesting that to be obedient, to obey Jesus' commands, is simply to be an instrument of God. The benefit is, just like I had the kids do, when I poured the water through here, guess what? It was still wet on the inside of that funnel. Some of that love flowing through you. You have the joy of love flowing through you. And everyone here has had the experience of giving someone love. It's wonderful, isn't it? Even these kids do. It's great. It's a wonderful feeling. The more it flows through you, guess what? It sticks. That love sticks. Do you get the whole thing to yourself? Nope. You don't want it either. You'll become toxic in your self-love. To flow through. And that's what Jesus is saying. To open up that aperture wide on top. To engage. And what does that mean specifically? It means to engage in those activities that breathe life into you. Whether it's prayer, whether it's time in community, whether it's working to work a job that you love, whether it's time with your children, whatever it is. There's an old text from the book of Proverbs that says, do not muzzle the ox while he's treading the grain. It's a ridiculous verse. It actually Proverbs back to, Deuteronomy, Leviticus. It's a ridiculous verse. Who cares about oxen? I don't think there's a person in this room that owns an ox. Yet it's a brilliant verse. You want to know why it's a brilliant verse? Because the notion is basically that an oxen would be on a cantilever or an arm and would just be walking around in circles, and the grain would be spread out on the ground. And as he walked over the grain, he's separating the wheat from the chaff. He's separating the grain from the husk and so forth. Or if the ox was in a field and he's pulling the hoe or the farmer and whatever implements he might have attached to the ox, as he's pulling it, what this verse is saying, don't muzzle the ox. Don't put something on his mouth. In other words, a lot